Mr. Powell, are you ready?
1 minute.
Okay.
Okay.
Good evening. This is Monday, September 18th, 2023, and we're here for a governing body meeting. I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Mayor Dunn is present and presiding. Councilmember Phila is absent. Councilmember Osman. Here. Councilmember Rawlings.
Here.
Councilmember Larson is absent. Councilmember Sippel.
Here.
Councilmember Harrison.
Here.
Councilmember Kane.
Here.
And Councilmember Azeltine is absent.
All right, thank you very much. We do have quorum, and the next order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. So as you're able, would you please rise, and we will face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yep, here comes Mary.
All right, thank you.
Dr.
The
Pay.
next item is the approval of the agenda, and I don't believe we have any modifications to the agenda this evening. So I would
for
entertain
approval.
a motion
Second.
to approve. A motion from Mr. Rawlings, second from Mr. Osman. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. It's approved unanimously. Thank you. We have no citizens who signed in to speak this evening, so we now move to proclamation, and the first one under 5A is Diaper Need Awareness Week. And Susan Belger-Angulo, would you like to, you can stay at the podium, and I would like to read this into the record and then offer you the opportunity to make some comments. Thank you for being with us this evening. Whereas diaper need, the condition of not having a sufficient supply of clean diapers to keep babies and toddlers clean, dry, and healthy, can adversely affect the health and well-being of babies, toddlers, and their families. Whereas national surveys and research studies report that 1 in 3 families struggles with diaper need, and 48% of families delay changing a diaper to extend the available supply. And children go through 6 to 12 diapers each day during the 2 to 3 years they wear diapers. Whereas purchasing enough diapers to keep a baby or toddler clean, dry, and healthy can consume 14% of a low-wage family's post-tax income, making it difficult to obtain a sufficient supply. Whereas many parents struggling with diaper need report missing an average of 4 days of work each month due to an insufficient supply of diapers, and parents missing work due to diaper need hinders their ability to provide for their family financially, creates workforce problems for small businesses, and hurts the local economy. Whereas without enough diapers, babies and toddlers risk infections and health problems that may require medical attention, resulting in medical costs, and parents may be prevented from assessing child care needed to go to work or school, thereby destabilizing the family's economic prospects and well-being. Whereas the people of the City of Leawood recognize that diaper need is a public health issue, and addressing diaper need can lead to economic opportunity for the city's families and communities and improved health for children, thus ensuring all children and families have access to the basic necessities required to thrive and reach their full potential. Whereas diaper banks and the staff and volunteers who run them are community leaders and logistics experts who ensure a stable and sustainable supply of basic necessities for members of their communities, and through their important work of addressing diaper need, diaper banks play a critical role in supporting families, improving infant health and well-being, and advancing our local and state economic growth. Now, therefore, I, Peggy Dunn, Mayor of the City of Leawood, do hereby proclaim the week of September 18th through the 24th, 2023, as Diaper Need Awareness Week in the city of Leawood, and encourage the citizens of Leawood to donate generously to diaper banks, diaper drives, and those organizations that collect and distribute diapers to those struggling with diaper needs, so that all of Leawood's children and families can thrive and reach their full potential. And I know this is an important organization to our Leawood Rotary Club and also to Councilmember Osman, whose family is very involved with your organization. And could I present you this before you make some comments? Congratulations. Thank you for what you do. Appreciate your good work.
Thank you, Mayor Dunn. Little bit of information and background, and this is new statistics that came out this year, and they are staggering. We were taken back quite a bit. Happy Bottoms has distributed over 21 million diapers in Kansas City and surrounding areas since 2009. But the new facts on diaper need, according to the National Diaper Bank Check 2023, which we were asked to be a part of, and we surveyed over 300 families in our community, and the statistics came back that we used to say 1 in 3 families needed our help, and now it's nearly 1 in 2 U.S. families with children under the age of 4 struggle to afford enough diapers. 46% of the families reporting having to cut back on other essentials in order to buy diapers, including 35% reporting that they cut back on food and groceries. Families who reported diaper need missed on average, we used to say 4 days a month of work, and now it's nearly 5.1 work days per month because they didn't have the number of diapers required to take their child to daycare. 87% of families receiving diapers are employed. And additionally, 12% of those adults are working 2 or more jobs. And the more staggering result was that 21% of those families were middle income. Diaper costs have increased 32% in the last 4 years. So we continue to address the basic needs of the families in our community and try to find other ways to help and support in other outreach areas. But one of the things that we've learned through our own study here in Kansas City is that 50 diapers per month per child is not enough. And so we have started and launched a new initiative that happened last Monday night when we launched our major fundraiser. And this new initiative is called 75 to Thrive. And in 2024, we will be giving 75 diapers per family per month, and we hope that that helps just ease and give the families a little bit more relief and make sure that families have diapers to go to daycare. So we're really excited about that. But with the help of Councilman Osman, I was connected with the Leawood Police Department, and we had rolled this out to the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department. We know that our first responders roll up on situations all of the time. So we have created these wonderful little things called Happy Packs, and they are 5 diapers. They come in every size, 1 through 6, plus training pants, with a card on the back that connects a family to an agency that we work with, and we work with 60 partner agencies throughout our community to get diapers into the hands of families. And so what we're doing is we have Happy Packs in all of the police squad cars, so when they roll up on a situation, they're able to hand these Happy Packs out as needed. And we're very excited to have that partnership with the Leawood Police Department, and we currently are working with the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department, the Independence Fire Department, and CASA. And I will tell you just one quick story that we were told and by the Independence Fire Department that Friday night where we had the horrible storm that knocked down most of our beautiful trees in the city. One of the trees fell on a house in Independence and brought the power line down, and it caught the house on fire. And the family with 3 small children were only able to get out with the clothes on their back. While the fire department was fighting the fire, one of the babies needed to be changed. So they grabbed a Happy Pack out of the fire truck, and one of the firemen changed the baby's diapers while the rest of the firemen continued to fight the fire. They were also able to provide 2 weeks' worth of Happy Packs to the family to go into emergency shelter until they could get kind of their feeding or their footing underneath them, and was able to get into one of our partner agencies. So these outreach packs help, and we are so happy that they're in the hands of the Leawood Police Department. And thank you, Andrew.
Well, we're happy to hear all of that good news as well. So thank you for sharing it. Thank you, Chief Finger, and your department for your involvement also.
Yes.
And thanks for coming this evening.
You're welcome, and we look forward to having you at Happy Bottoms to wrap diapers soon.
October 4th.
Thank you.
October 4th. All right, thanks so much. Our next proclamation this evening is National Co-Responder and Crisis Responder Week. And Chief Finger, are you going to introduce Captain Yoder to introduce the co-responders?
I will. Chief Dale Finger. I would like to introduce Captain Kurt Yoder, who is actually in charge of our department's co-responder program, and he has a few guests to introduce as well.
Great, thank you very much. Captain Yoder?
Good evening. Come on. So I do have three folks from our co-responder program with us tonight. We got the Deputy Division Director of the co-responder program, Jessica Murphy. We've got the Northeast Team Supervisor, Jen Melby. And then our own co-responder, Amy Hennis, is here with us tonight as well.
Well, I know the importance of your wonderful work and involvement with our department, so we so appreciate what you do, and thank you so much. It makes a huge difference. And I'm going to read this into the record, and then I'll present it, and then if you all would like to say some comments, please feel free. Whereas the City of Leawood, Kansas has continued to address the rising demand for mental health and substance use services. Whereas mental health and substance use challenges can lead to homelessness, incarceration, and emergency room visits, which are more intrusive and costly for communities than earlier interventions and connections to behavioral health services. Whereas the City of Leawood, Kansas has recognized the need for additional resources for individuals experiencing mental health crises and identified crisis intervention team training, mental health first aid training, and Johnson County mental health co-responders as emerging effective practices. Whereas the City of Leawood, Kansas Police Department, having recognized the importance of advanced and ongoing training in mental health awareness, now has more than 90% of its first responders to have received such training. And whereas the City of Leawood, Kansas Police and Johnson County Mental Health Co-Responder Program began a collaborative effort in 2019 to embed a mental health clinician and law enforcement to respond to individuals in crisis in order to provide the right intervention at the right time to avoid arrests, emergency room visits, and repeat 911 calls by connecting to appropriate resources. Whereas today the City of Leawood has 2 co-responder positions, which included 1 additional position approved by the governing body in 2022. Now, therefore, I, Peggy Dunn, Mayor of the City of Leawood, on behalf of the citizens of Leawood, do hereby proclaim September 18th through the 24th, 2023 as Co-Responder and Crisis Responder Week. And I'd like to present this maybe to you, Captain Yoder, and thank you so much for your wonderful work in this important area. Thank you.
I'll just quickly, if you don't mind, sorry. So Jessica Murphy, Deputy Division Director at Johnson County Mental Health Center, and I have the opportunity to oversee all of our co-responder programs throughout the county. I'm also the chair of the International Co-Responder Alliance, who is actually the 501c3 starting this initiative. So this is the first time that we have had National Co-Responder and Crisis Responder Week. It was very quick that Captain Yoder jumped at the chance to have this happen in Leawood, and we really appreciate that, and I think it speaks to the partnership that we've had between our cities and counties, that the agencies truly come together, and we see that there are opportunities to work together, that we have the same goal to help individuals, and we look at how we can make that possible. I have been able to work with Leawood, the program here, since it started in 2017, and so I've seen it grow from the program when you had just 1/7 of the program, when you had the Northeast program, if you recall, and then it grew to have to split, because they really recognized there was a need to have dedicated co-responders. They wanted more time, more face time with their officers, and more time in the community. And then as you read this year, you guys added the second position as well. And so thank you to the police department, to Amy for the work that she does, but also to you guys for making this an important part of your community and really the fabric that helps people get the needs that they deserve.
And has that second position been fully staffed?
It has not. We've had good opportunities to interview and practice our interview questions. We have not filled the position. There's quite the demand right now for clinicians, so we've been looking at opportunities to figure that out.
Well, we will keep our fingers crossed. We know how important it is.
It is,
And
yeah,
you make a big difference, so thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you, Captain Yoder, for your leadership with this. We have no presentations or recognitions. We have no special business. We move now to the 8 consent agenda items A through V. And I'll ask, is there anything anyone would like to pull for discussion? Ms. Larson?
L, as in Larson.
Okay. Anything else anyone would like to pull? Then I'll entertain a motion to approve the remaining portion, please.
So moved.
Motion from Ms. Larson, second from Ms. Harrison. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? It's approved unanimously. Thank you. 8L is a resolution approving an eligible facilities request for the addition and replacement of antennae and associated equipment at the Salon Sirloin Club's cell tower for T-Mobile Central LLC located south of I-435 and east of Mission Road. Ms. Larson?
Mark, sorry to put you on the spot. I meant to email you this afternoon, but I know we've had a recent email exchange on this, and I'm so excited to see this on our agenda. Anytime that our cell service providers are upgrading their equipment and improving service in Leawood, we're very excited and happy about that. And I was just hoping that you would you gave me some information in an email just a few weeks ago about what T-Mobile is doing and then some of our other service providers. And I thought this would be a good opportunity to update everyone on what's happening.
Sure. Actually, we've been working pretty steadily with AT&T and starting to with T-Mobile. AT&T was close to as far as making an application, but it's my understanding that now they did a pause. And I think for financial reasons is what they were saying. And they think that might go off at some point here, but currently right now they stopped pursuing, and so that's why we haven't really seen anything, because we were waiting for it each month and we thought it was going to come in, and then eventually they just told us the reason is that AT&T put a pause on new sites right now. So we're still working as far as looking at the development ordinance to allow to go into certain areas under certain conditions that would allow better phone service, but that's kind of where we're at right now.
And then Verizon, have we had any?
Verizon I've contacted a couple of times, and I still haven't received kind of a callback. I did have a discussion with them initially, and they said they had some concerns with regard to the LDO and the restrictions as far as that the city has. I said, well, could we meet and you let us know as far as what your concerns are and kind of start from there, which is what we did with AT&T and T-Mobile. But they never really responded. And so okay, I keep on kind of reaching out to them, and I'm thinking that I might have Michelle Cricks, our new planning official, do it. She might have better luck than I am. So yeah, we're still in the process of trying to do that.
Well, thank you for the update, and thank you for your work on trying to move the ball forward on improving our cell service.
Okay, thank you.
And with that, motion to approve.
Second.
A motion from Ms. Larson, second from Ms. Phila. And now, Mr. Sipple, you have another question.
I just had another question for Ms.
Is your mic on?
Yes. Question for Mr. Klein. In the past couple years, we've had issues down there with that cell tower surround in terms of keeping the fence that circles the thing properly painted to the right color, and also with landscaping. Is this a time just to make sure those two issues are up to our standards?
We did have somebody go out to the site and look at the landscaping especially, and some of it is not in great condition. So we have contacted as far as neighborhood services to let them know, and so hopefully we'll see that kind of put back the way it should be.
Okay. Thank you, Mark.
Any other questions from anyone? I too want to add my appreciation. I know you've been working very hard with all the providers.
Well, thank
Every time we hear from a resident, we contact you. And so we all appreciate it.
So hopefully before too long, we'll actually have
Yes.
something physical.
Right, right. All right, we have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, it's approved unanimously. Thank you. Going now to Mayor's report. I'd like to begin by offering our sincere sympathies to Leawood Police Chief Dale Finger and his family on the recent passing of his brother, Terry, at the young age of 66. We extend our condolences to his wife, Patty, his 3 children and grandchildren, the siblings, and the friends. His beautiful tribute video, which I had the pleasure of watching, illustrated his love for his family and the K-State Wildcats. So may he rest in peace. I participated in 2 Leawood Chamber ribbon cuttings during the past 2 weeks. First was for Natalie M. Studio, which is located on the north side of Town Center Plaza, and they have beautiful wedding gowns, mother of the bride gowns, bridesmaids dresses, formal wear. They are open by appointment only. So I encourage you to go look. The second ribbon cutting was for Nick Bolton Fitness, located at Plaza Point Shopping Center at 135th and Row. It is not the Nick Bolton who plays for the Chiefs.
Oh.
We all thought it was going to be. It is not. And this is a members-only fitness facility with state-of-the-art equipment and trainers. It's very beautiful. So we wish both of these businesses much success. The September Council of Mayors meeting was hosted by the new chairman for the year, Overland Park Mayor Kurt Skoog, at the Matt Ross Community Center. Those in attendance shared, which I was there, we shared our brief updates on our 2024 budgets. I was joined by Chief Finger and others from his command staff, along with council members Harrison, Rawlings, and Sipple at the Sunflower House annual breakfast. Thank you for hosting that. Council member Rawlings also joined me and City Administrator Diane Stoddard at the Shawnee Mission Education Foundation Fall Breakfast. And congratulations to our own Leawood resident, Arts Council member, and Art and Public Places Initiative Chairman Kim Hinkle, who serves as the foundation executive director. Congratulations and thanks to HR Director Nick Sanders and his team for hosting the Employee Health and Safety Fair. It was energetic and informative, very well received by all who participated, and I heard numerous comments about folks hoping it will be an annual affair, and I'm just looking right at you, Mr. Sanders. They really would like that. It was great, so thank you. That concludes my mayor's report. We have no council members' reports this evening. Ms. Stoddard, did you have any city administrator report?
I have no report, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We have no old business. We move now to new business. 13A is to consider the approval of changes to the City of Leawood's vacation policy. Ms. Stoddard, are you taking the lead on this?
Yes, Mayor, I'll make a few introductory comments. So we've begun as a staff in looking at our personnel policies and procedures to have a thorough review of those. It's been a number of years since we've done that. And as we do that, we'll from time to time bring these forward to you all if they have some kind of a fiscal note associated with it. We're looking for, in our review of this, we're kind of guided by the idea of the City of Leawood continuing to be very competitive in the market. You all know that it's very competitive for employees currently, and as an employer, we need to be proactive in making sure that we're attractive to both attract and retain great staff that we have. And so we're bringing to you a set of changes that we're proposing to the city's vacation policy to kind of bring us in line with that, and then again guided by the idea of us being a very, very attractive to be able to get employees to come here and then also to stay here. So with that, I'll introduce Nick Sanders, who will walk you through the proposed changes to the policy.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Val promised that this would work seamlessly, so the first test is actually getting this presentation open. If you can switch it over, that'd be great. Okay, so I hear you guys want to talk about vacation. As Diane mentioned, we're kind of going through a process, and one of the things that people are very active and very opinionated about are our amounts of vacation and things of that nature. As we go through the process, we do a lot of things, but I kind of want to start in the early stages as to looking at the different things of like, why do we give vacation? Predominantly, it's a work-life balance, well-being, getting a separation of just being away from work, clear your head, to do things so you can be your best self at work and you can be your best self at home. Life does not stop because you walk in the door, because you jump in a police car. Your life still happens when you're responding to a fire, when you're running a backhoe on public works. You're still going to have those types of things happen. You're still getting your phone blown up on different things about life that happens in general. So we want to incent people to sort of have those breaks and just to sort of balance those things out, family commitments and just well-being and emotional states as well. And secondly, it's also market competitiveness. Do we want to ensure that people are competitively compensated as well, so we can say, hey, we have just as good, if not better, as everybody else. So, for example, if we were the only agency that did not give vacation, how would that look for us? Obviously, we are not, but we are not necessarily in the top tier categories we'll talk about here in a minute. But at the same time, we want to ensure that we can maintain competitiveness, if not lead that market. So to give you some insight about what we currently do, today we currently have a couple different processes. We actually accrue a process in which you accrue biweekly, and you accrue every 5 years. So at 0 to 5 years, you accrue 2 weeks. And then from 5 to 10, you accrue 3 weeks, and 10 plus years, you accrue 4 weeks. There's a yearly carryover of 200 hours. And you have to wait 6 months until you actually have worked for the city to actually utilize your vacation. That is not necessarily the most up-to-date program. It's a great program for the early 2000s. It's been well received and sought after from a lot of people. We're very appreciative of that. We have a large number of balances, but yet it's still not that necessarily as competitive as we necessarily need to be. Just as an example, these are what we accrue and how much you get per year as in a table form. As you can see, it's just slightly over 80 hours, so on and so forth. The bottom one you're going to see here is 2756. Those are the firefighters. So you can see we separate the firefighters. They get a little bit more because they actually work a longer annual hours worked. They work 2,756 is what they use those on a 27, 28-day pay period process. So as a comparison, right now you're going to start to see a comparison of the various things that you're going to come into play. These are the agencies that we've compared ourselves to: Johnson County, Lenexa, Olathe, so on and so forth. You can see where those transitions, as you work through on the bottom axis, you're going to see the number of years. On the vertical axis, you're going to see the number of hours that you accrue as you progress through the number of years. And what should have come across as powder blue, that's where we are. We're sitting there towards one of the bottom three as we get into the year approximately 18, 19. And initially, we're actually one of the bottom ones too as well. Not bad, but also not the best. We can jump around and do those types of things, but we actually kind of go above and below, but eventually we just kind of stay, and we hit a point at about year 10, and we just hit 4 weeks and we stay. The market has went above us, and they have decided to do that on their own. As you can see, there are a number of agencies that are exceeding what we have. There are a couple that are below, but not many. Questions about the existing policy or how we got here?
Any questions, Mr. Sipple?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Go back to your chart, the one that just previous to this page.
Can we have all the colors again?
We got all the colors.
No, I mean, I loved the way you presented them. They all came up. It was very nice. Whoever did the video on that, good work.
Thank you.
That doesn't answer my question. How many employees, we got roughly 300 people employed by the city. How many of them have more than 10 years service under their belt? What percentage of the 300? Half?
I would probably guess
third?
half. I mean, half. We are rapidly aging, retiring out.
Right.
You know, there are various options there, so it's hard to give you a really good glimpse. But yeah, right about half. I would guess about half of our employees are about at least 10 years.
So if I read this right, at 10 years, we're competitive with just about everybody. And when you get to 15 years, we fall behind Prairie Village, Johnson County, and what, Overland, well, we don't fall below Overland Park until what, year 19 or 20?
Yes.
So, and that's under the current. So 2 out of the 7 counties, so 2 out of 7 beat us.
Correct.
So do we lose recruits because when they're sitting across the table in a recruiting session, you've got their application, they say, what is your vacation accrual policy 10 years and beyond?
No, sir, we do not.
Okay, thank you.
I would venture to guess, and I can't speak on behalf of those that are actively recruiting. I know Captain Yoder is in the room. He's been the most recent, but Chief as well is in the room. I don't think at this point, one of the biggest things that we are seeking right now is police officers. When we're hiring police officers, a lot of them are looking at, can I just make money and be a police officer at this point? They're looking just to get a job. But we are seeing people that are having lateral transfers from other agencies. And so they're starting to look at those year 10, year 15, those types of things of what they get. So we're seeing a different glimpse into what those other agencies are doing to look at those that are quote unquote mid-late career. And I say that a little loosely because mid-late career is going to be roughly 40 for a police officer if they start at age 25, say 15 years.
If you bring in somebody mid-management, you know, that's got 15 years of service at other municipalities or other departments, they have the ability to bargain for vacation. They can say, well, I'll come, but you got to reinstitute. I had 3 weeks where I came from. Can you give me 3 weeks to start with? Isn't there some bargaining going on?
Traditionally, there has not been that amount.
Really?
It's only been allowed for executive level department heads or so. It has been requested. It's becoming more prevalent, as we'll touch on here in a minute, which is why we've started to see a little bit more conversations and some of the proposals we're getting, as you'll see here, the next few slides as to why we want to kind of go and combat those a little bit before we have to unfortunately tell somebody no, as opposed to, well, let's go for you, but not you. We want to make it more equitable across the board and just answer that question from the get-go.
Thank you, Nick. That answers my questions so far.
Okay. I don't see any other hands at the moment, so maybe you're doing a good job explaining everything.
Good deal. So, next slide here. So we've heard of a number of issues, and I say issues very loosely. People are not mad that they're not getting too much vacation. But when you start looking across the organization, and you start comparing yourself to peers, and you start seeing things that are happening, and you start saying, oh, wow, Overland Park is getting 5 weeks of vacation at so many years. Oh, wow, did you hear this, or did you hear that? It starts to create a murmur. And so we start hearing those things. So we start looking at these things. And one of the hot button issues that department heads looked at was the vacation leave policy, as Diane mentioned. We went back and we did a lot of studying. We reviewed the process. We hashed it out. We argued, we fought, we yelled, we screamed, we kicked, we punched. Chris hits hard, just so you know. But no, we went through a lot of processes. We wanted to figure out what is our goal, what is our objective, and why we're doing that. But we also want to ensure that we give back to the employees and maintain that work-life balance. At the same time, give them the opportunity for the city to be productive and active, continuing to advance and do what we need to do, but at the same time, understand that there's that balance that comes with the things that come into play. So what our proposal is going to essentially cover is going to be a matter of four things. Essentially, it's going to be removing a maximum carryover. It's going to change or modify that vacation schedule, change something to a opportunity for vacation leave to be new hires as of January 1, 2023. And so we also allow them to use accrued vacation leave upon hire. And that is accrued vacation leave, and that's saved that way by design, and we'll touch on that in a minute. And I want to acknowledge that it is an enhancement. No one is losing at this point. It is an increase, therefore, it will be an enhancement. The first, sorry. Okay. And it's very slow to transition, so I apologize for that one. So the first one is a maximum carryover. Essentially, the maximum carryover is a relic from years gone by. As I mentioned, great for 1990s and 2000s. What it does is it creates a limit on an employee. They have to use it. So what they do is if you're really busy throughout the year, departments see a rash of people taking vacation towards the end of the year, and they are gone for 3 weeks out of December, or just to get under that threshold, or they come begging and groveling to say, hey, can I carry over this? And we try to create exceptions, or we try to create things around, or what we do with those things. We also allow for opportunities to do a sick and vacation cell. This one's going to be that vacation, but sometimes if you didn't make a decision approximately a year before, you're kind of handcuffed. So at the end of the day, we're kind of creating a barrier for an employee to use an opportunity if this so happens that life gets in the way and work gets in the way. They've been really dedicated, so why would we limit them? So we've looked at it, and we want to make sure that employees have the flexibility. 400 hours for a normal full-time employee, 40 hours. 500 hours for firefighters. That's approximately 10 weeks. We hope that 10-week period allows for people to bank enough time should the unfortunate situation happen that they have to dip into vacation time. They want to take a month off to go to Tahiti. If they want to take a weekend off here and there every month, whatever that is, whatever they work with their department head. But we also want to make sure that they have that opportunity to have that safeguard and ensure that they have the ability to do so. The one caveat of this is when they hit that maximum, they stop accruing time. That liability that the organization is incurring stops.
Ms. Harrison was first, I think, and then Mr. Sippel.
Thanks. I think I'm following you, Nick, but maybe it's just some of the verbiage that's messing with my brain this evening. They can accrue up to 400 hours, their balance in their vacation bank, which is, if I understand my math correctly, 10 weeks of vacation.
That is correct.
They can accrue 10 weeks of vacation and then get paid for that when they leave, or use that in 1 year? Because I don't think that most of our employees can be gone for 10, I mean, if my philosophy has always been, if you can be gone for 10 weeks in a year, do we need you? I don't understand how somebody could have 10 weeks of vacation stockpiled and then theoretically use it in a year. Or maybe there's a rule hidden in here that I'm not seeing that, which you couldn't use
Right.
10 weeks in a year. I mean-
Right, so I don't want to say to challenge that, but to combat that, we're highly encouraging people to use at least 40 hours a year. Part of our mantra to work-life balance and push people to get away from work. We want people to take time away because we think they can be their best self when they're at work, when they take time for rest and respite.
I agree.
So that's going to drive that down. In order for them to get to a 400-hour balance, they would have to take 0 vacation hours for approximately 5 years. I think if I remember right off the cuff, the old system is getting blended with what we're proposing. And then absolutely sell none of it back at the end of the year, and then essentially have no vacation for 5 straight years to get to that point.
Okay, so maybe this is what makes me very unpopular, but I believe there should be an element of use it or lose it. And I don't feel like I'm seeing that, because we can say we want you to have a work-life balance, but if we don't make you use half of your vacation every year, we must not really want you to have a work-life balance. And I've worked at corporations, big corporations in Kansas City that have had unlimited vacation. I can tell you the pros and cons of that. Use it or lose it. Yes, there are pros and cons, but I've also seen where people could bank it, they didn't take it, and somehow the organization was on the hook for like 5 years worth of vacation at the end when that person retired. I'm not sure I think that's right either. So I believe that it needs massaging, but if they have a bank and we're not requiring that they use at least half their vacation a year, is there a suggestion or is there a requirement that they use at least half of their vacation a year?
As the way it's written currently in the proposed policy, it is highly encouraged for them to use at least 40 hours of vacation every year. That can still be modified. Combat to that, you have 12 holidays a year. You have, which inclusive of 3 floating personal holidays, 2 to 3 holidays that come into play there. You have different employees that are working on shift work versus non-shift work. We just, as department head group, we didn't feel like it was sort of at this point to push and require 40 hours. Certain departments will require that. For example, cash handling, finance department to ensure a break in service for auditing purposes to see if there's any suspicious activity or
Right.
fraud, things of that nature will be coming up to be exposed there. And so I did hear that from Mr. Cobby as well during these discussions. So it's really something that's kind of a decision point if that's something that is of need to you. But it is something that we're just proposing right now to be 400 hours. It is a lot. I will tell you, 400 is a lot. And that is 10 weeks of leave, but it does give a buffer. No matter what, it is currently policy when someone leaves today, they could have up to 400 hours, right about 400 hours today, I will tell you that, because they could have 200 hours from last year, and they could leave at the end of this year and be approximately at 200 hours, if not a little bit more, and being cashed out at the end of the year, and they leave employment. So they can actually get above that amount too. Actually about 360, excuse me.
Right. I mean, I worked in the world of education where teachers at the end of their careers got these payouts, and that bankrupts states. And the state of Illinois is in big trouble because there were these huge banks of unused vacation because teachers get spring break and because they get Christmas break. And I mean, I was an educator, but I still didn't think it made sense. So I have concerns about folks not being forced to use a certain percentage. We've got it. It's a part of the reason you came here, supposedly. It was a reason you signed to work here instead of, it was a hiring incentive.
Right.
But then you didn't actually use it. And then I also think, but this is up to managers, you don't want everybody taking the month of December off, so there needs to be communication. Maybe you can't take all of your vacation time in the last quarter. Again, I've worked in organizations where there were very stern reminders at the end of each quarter. If you haven't used any vacation time, you might want to check with your manager because we can't have you all off between Thanksgiving and, we have a company to run. We can't all be gone from Thanksgiving to Christmas. But that's communication amongst managers and department heads, and they need to be doing a good job of that. But that is a concern that I have, so.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Sippel, and then Mr. Osmond.
Thank you very much. Most of my questions have been answered by the dialogue, so I'll just wait until the end.
Mr. Osmond?
Thank you. I know I, for one, don't like vacation at all. I believe in the taskmaster sort of thing, but I was just wondering, we did do pay increases for all the employees, and I believe that that was a work session.
It wasn't all of them, it was.
No, but it was like fire and police and.
Fire, police, Parks and Rec, and Public Works in the lower
but
echelon of
We
those.
had discussions on that.
But we are
during-
doing a compensation study, you know, for every employee.
So I was just wondering, was it something that we needed to talk about tonight, that we needed to, it's imperative to get this approved? Or is this something that we need to delve in a little bit further because we haven't had work sessions in a while? And is this something that we put on a work session next time or the following time, that we get our arms around truly what are other cities? And, you know, my thing, when we looked at the graph a minute ago, it's not at the back end, it's at the front end. And trying to recruit people, that first 5 years, I think, is the most important thing, because that's how you get, retain, and have people long-term is that vacation. And if we're not at the top at the beginning and being competitive, you know, this balance at the carryover at the very end, I think is, you know, secondary. Right. That's. Yeah.
Well,
and you stay. You're not going to say, I'm moving after 20 years because I got another week at KCMO. But they're looking, in the first 5 years, the police, the fire, we're having a very tough time, just like every other city, trying to recruit. And those extra benefits, be it pay increases, be it vacation, those are all things at the bottom line that you could go after people on.
For sure. And we got an answer for that, even though you're a taskmaster with it.
Thank
You want
you.
to work all the time. So they're all very valid points. The 400 is a little higher for the market, but it's definitely, as been stated, we want to make sure that we set that bar. What we've heard from you as a governing body is we want to be that agency, torchbearer, similar. But it does create a lot of potential risk when it comes to the financial exposure, that if now everybody's got 400 hours, now you've got 300 people with 400 hours, I would venture to guess that based upon Steven's shirt, you probably don't going to have 300 people at 400 hours. I'd be willing to bet that shirt off his back. Now, the difference of that is that it's going to be very balanced. Yeah, tighten it up. But the other side of that equation is just the perception of I can if I want to. We're seeing a large shift in the workplace market, that people want to make sure that they have the opportunity to do things. They want to have the flexibility to do things. And just even the ability to do so is different. Will you have people? 100%. We have people now that have way too much vacation time. They just don't take the break. But that's a liability we have to pay no matter what. Is it at 400 now? Absolutely not. It is a risk. That is for sure.
Well, and if somebody really has a bank of $400, sorry, I have a follow-up. That's okay. I mean, could one of our employees say, I'd like to take a 10-week vacation this year? My husband and I are going on that dream cruise, and forget about waiting for retirement. I'm going now around the world. I'll see you in 10 weeks. Who's going to do their job for 10 weeks? But I have the vacation time.
Yeah.
I've been accruing it for 15 years, and you let me. So I worry about what the message we're sending.
It is generally not likely, and I say that as a caveat to give me an out at some point in the future when you say,
Right.
I heard you say.
Well.
But what I would see it more so as is where we've seen it in an actual experience is that an employee has sick leave and life has happened.
There you
They've
go.
burned down their sick leave. Unfortunately to say, they have a terminal illness, and in order for them to be compensated and carry insurance coverage, we start jumping into that vacation usage, things of that nature is where we start dabbling into. The vast majority, all but I think it's 4 of our employees, the payout of vacation doesn't matter towards retirement anymore. It's a cash amount that get paid out to people, but it doesn't matter to the calculation of retirement anymore. Capers exempted that a number of years ago. So it doesn't add to that incentive to bank that much time other than the payout. So what we end up doing and seeing is that those people are going to be saving that amount of money, and my perception is going to be the rainy day, worst case scenario fund. So I get an unfortunate situation, I have to have a heart transplant. I haven't been a really good person when I started to say, I've only got 2 weeks of vacation, but I got to be out for 12 weeks of leave. But I've got a lot of vacation set now. I've got 8 weeks of vacation. I'm going to be now paid for 10 of those 12 weeks.
Okay.
And I see that more as a buffer there. I don't necessarily say it happens a lot, but we
Right.
generally have one
Well, I do
to
like
2
that.
a year. So,
Okay.
like I said, I'm not going to say that it won't happen, but I think it's ultimately up to the departments themselves. I would agree that there's probably not a single person that can take 10 weeks off in this organization, and nobody does their job, and the job just sits stagnant. Now, I would leave it up to the department and the management of the department and the city administrator to say, sure, you can take a month-long vacation or sabbatical or whatever that needs to be, and be compensated for that as well.
Okay. One more concern, sorry.
No, you're good.
This is a thing. I've had a lot of jobs. So we mentioned earlier about bargaining, and when you're being hired, could you negotiate for a little bit more? And my concern about that is not everybody's a great advocate for themselves. So you get two people who are hired for similar level jobs, and they're chatting around the coffee station a few months later, and they find out, oh, I have 3 weeks. Man, you've been gone a lot. Yeah, I have 3 weeks of vacation. Wait, didn't we get hired the same month? Well, why, yes, we did, but I'm a shark, and I negotiated for another. Well, wait, I didn't know you could do that. You know, all of a sudden, you've got somebody who's forever, behind somebody else on the scale. So I see both sides of it.
Yeah.
Some people are great at advocating for themselves, for asking, and other people don't have that comfort level. They're a little
Right.
more introverted, whatever.
Which, to be fair, was why we traditionally have not done that for anything other than department heads,
Senior level.
executive level positions. And even then, it was very hit and miss. You had to be your own advocate. You had to go in and say, yes, please, sir, can I have this? And even then, it was maybe not. But we wanted to make sure that those people did not have to go to put themselves in a position. They were able to do that, and we were able to grant those. And you'll see here in a minute when we start talking about granting of time, day one, for year one, things like that, what the opportunities are going to be to come down the pike. So you don't put yourself in that position. So you don't put someone because they were savvy enough to negotiate an extra week when they started, as opposed to the person who was just, I'm thankful I'm going to work for Leawood,
Right.
and that concept.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to ask a question, but let me ask, and then we'll go to Mr. Osmond. Looking at the doubling from 200 to 400 and not knowing what back and forth you went through with department heads, did you consider going from 200 to 300 versus doubling it? And what does that do to the chart? What does Leawood look like if you just went to 300 initially? I mean, we are going to have a compensation study done for the whole city.
Right. So
And
that
there may
chart,
be other recommendations that'll come out of that, but.
right. So that chart, what you're seeing here is the actual accrual that you have hour for hour per year. That has nothing to do with the maximums. The maximum is a number that the organization sets to amount of carryover. We have some organizations that utilize double year accrual. In fact, most are double year accrual. So if you're in 5 weeks, you get 10 weeks. And that's where the 400 hours came into play. If the maximum is going to be 5 weeks, when you could accrue that, we're going to say 10 weeks, it's 400 hours, and that's where the 400 hour came into play, to be honest with you.
Was 300 even discussed?
Not a lot, not really. Because once that 300, because it's somebody that can carry over 200 already towards the end of this year, for example. So if I carried over 200 from 2022 to 2023, I could be at the end of this year, have 160 hours that I've accrued today in this current policy. I would have 360 hours. And I could be cashed out for 360 hours. If I was a 21-year employee, for example. Unfortunately to say, what's 40 hours more? Let's just round it to 40. It's twice the amount of the 5-year, things of that nature. We just didn't want to constrict that capability. It has been the norm for people to say your accrual maximum is double what your accrual is. So if you earn 2 weeks, it's 4. If you earn 5 weeks, you earn 3 weeks, it's 6, and so on and so forth. I've implemented policies that way before I came to here. So it is a possibility to adjust for that. And I think it is something that is not necessarily uncommon at all. It's just the 400 was based upon the 5 weeks or 10 weeks a year, which is 400 hours.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Osmond?
And I hate to go back to my original question, but why are we doing this now?
Right.
When we've got a whole compensation package that we need to look at in its entirety. And just, Unless there's a reason that we need to look at this immediately, and you're planning on going to Tahiti next week.
I don't have 10 weeks.
I feel more comfortable looking at this through a work session where we're looking at everything to being as competitive as possible for new hires and seniority across the board. Because it could be that we adopt this, or we tweak it ourselves here tonight, and then the compensation package comes back completely different, and we said we budgeted incorrectly. So all I'm saying is, not that I want to pass this off,
Right.
but I would like nothing more than to look at the entire scope of thing and look at the vacation, because I truly think that vacation is very important. That's in addition to pay. That's exactly, if I'm a new hire, that's what I'm looking at. And we need to look at everything together.
Right. So reason why we bring this up today. We, as I mentioned earlier, we have a sick and vacation redemption program. So employees opt in at the end of the year to, quote, sell or buy back sick leave or vacation leave. We're rapidly approaching the end of the year. We start preparation and planning. What we end up happening is people are saying, do I need to drive this down? Do I need to use it? Do I need it? And we scramble the last 3 months of the year around here, or should I drive it down? Should I carry it over? Should I not? And so as we start that discussion process, we started looking into this. We started looking at different types of things. And so we wanted to bring it forth to get that answer and we moving forward. Secondly, the compensation study has actually been split into 2 pieces. The first piece is going to be just base pay. They're going to do some cursory review of the premiums that you pay from the employee side versus the city side as well. But it's just compensation, looking at pure dollars that we're paying for base compensation or ancillary stuff. It is not likely to cover a lot on the vacation side. That will be covered in 2024 for 2025 effectiveness. So we have 2 or 3 things that are kind of stacking up against us. Haven't looked at it for a while. We run into sick and vacation cell periods. We're looking at personnel policy discussions. This was the one that was rising to the top, if not the only one that was of importance from the department head perspective. And so that's where the discussion and the greatest deal of effort is why we're bringing it forth to you today.
Ms. Fella and Mr. Sipple.
Thanks. I certainly understand the idea of taking this out of the complexity of the other things you're looking at and kind of making each decision a little more manageable because they don't have to be interrelated. So I do appreciate going ahead and doing this. I like the idea that you're increasing the vacation early on because that's, for many people when they're first starting their jobs, so many things are happening. And I was wondering, the question I had was about maternity leave. How much are people trying to accrue time for maternity leave, and what is our maternity leave, and how do they add to it with this?
We currently do not offer parental leave, maternity, paternity leave right now. It is a point of discussion amongst department heads as to some of the other policies, ancillary type programs. We are one of, if not the only in the county that does not offer that program, which is another reason why at some point we'll be coming to you to offer that as another type of leave in all likelihood.
My reaction was kind of, what?
I can't
But it justifies 10 weeks.
We don't offer any
But they're taking
maternity
vacation
leave?
time?
We offer sick leave and vacation leave. We do offer FMLA.
I mean,
So that
I
is
know,
indeed
I
covered
know
for
of
12
someone
weeks.
who's on maternity leave right now here with the city.
Well, that's not maternity leave.
So they're on
No,
leave
it's
with no
maternity
pay?
leave. You get 12 weeks, but you don't get a separate payment for it. You use whatever
Correct.
leave you've accrued. You could use your sick and vacation leave to pay for it when you're out.
Yeah, the vast majority of our employees, generically speaking, let's say you're young in your career, family's preparation, planning happen, everything starts working down the pike. Parental leave is meant to be mother-father bonding time, things of that nature. What generally happens, you're year 5 and you're like, I'm now either expecting a child, mother-father come in, and we say, guess what? You have 2 weeks of leave. And you said you have 2 options. Take it unpaid or spread that 2 weeks out. And most times they take it unpaid. But we do carry them and cover them for that period of time. FMLA purposes requires by law that we do that.
Well, just from my perspective, we should not talk about any of that until this gets fixed. That's how important I think that is. I would like to say that I'm glad everyone's encouraging 40 hours of vacation a week, but I think it needs to be mandatory because it's part of a culture when people do that. And then you don't have to feel like, well, I didn't take, you know, there's no unwritten rule that, you know, everybody doesn't have to take it. Instead, it's a rule, everybody does take it. So I think limiting the amount you can accrue and just simply say you don't get any more is a great way to handle that overage. But again, those are all the things I wanted to ask about, but the maternity, paternity leave, I just really think needs to be addressed ASAP and would like it to be part of this.
Mr. Sippel?
Thank you. Your remarks probably about 10 minutes ago, you used the term vacation buyback.
Yes, sir.
I wonder if you could explain a little bit of how that works.
So the way it works is that an employee, prior to the first day of the first check in the following year, makes an election of their sick and vacation and/or vacation leave to say, I want to cash out this amount of hours based upon a standard set by the city to be cashed out at the end and the last paycheck of the following year. It's an irrevocable election. And then the employee works through the year. If they have enough hours available, they do what they're supposed to do. They stay current in their employment. The last check comes around, we cash them out those hours. So an employee could make an election to cash out 2 weeks of leave. They work their year. The last check comes into play. They get paid their normal, quote unquote, 80 hours of pay. And then they get another 80 hours of that sick and vacation redemption. Same thing happens on sick leave. It's a little bit more complex currently, based upon the amount of hours used, but the same thing applies as well.
Is that used frequently? Do you have
All the time.
all the time? But it's all in December, January typically when
Yes, sir.
people cash it out?
Yes, but there's a very dated tax law that requires it have to be done before the pay period of the first check. Patty, do you know the number, it's constructive something right offhand?
Constructive receipt. If you have the right to receive the money at any time, they'll tax you
So it'll be
on
in the
that money.
W-2 income for the previous year?
Yes, it's an irrevocable election. So if we go with a program that says, we'll allow you to cash out vacation at any time for rainy day type stuff, that means I have to, at some point in the year, assess the taxation on every employee's vacation balance. So when you actually utilize it, I can't tax you on it because you've already paid taxes on it. The constructive receipt doctrine requires that you do that. It bypasses all of that. It's a program that was put into place by Mr. Lambers 15 years ago or so, and it's been very sought after. We are the only agency that I'm aware that does it in the area.
But it requires a person to say early in the year how much vacation they're actually going to utilize.
It requires them to say in the almost a year prior.
A year
So in
prior.
December, approximately December 15th, no later than December 15th, between say the 1st and the 15th, every employee has to make an election to say, I want to sell back X amount of hours. So if I say I want to sell back 100 hours, and then everything goes happening, and I use whatever hours, I'm forced to take that 100 hours in compensation at the end of the following year's last paycheck,
So with
even if
your-
I used it or not.
With your new proposal for, to Ms. Fella's point, they could say, if it was mandatory that they use 40 hours, and of course they'd have to be a 20-year plus probably employee, they could say, I'm going to use 40 hours next year, and I want to be cash out 9 weeks
No.
of vacation.
We limit it to 144 hours, which is, I think it's 144, 120, which I think is 3 weeks, is what it's now.
3 weeks?
Yes.
So then what happens to the 9? So they're allotted 10 weeks for the year. What happens to the other 9 weeks?
They're allotted 5 weeks for the year. They earn it 5 weeks through the
Oh,
year.
we were talking about 10.
They can bank up to a maximum of 10. So you earn as you go through. So let's say you start January 1. At the end of that year, conceptually, you'll have 5 weeks. The next year, you don't take any leave. At the end of the following year, you'll have 10 weeks. And so from there, you stop accruing. So therefore, after that, let's say you want to sell back, you're required to use your 40, and then you sell back 3 weeks. Now you got 4 weeks less, but you're also accruing 5 more weeks. And so you see that kind of give-take process. It's again why we want to make sure that people utilize leave, so there's a give-take. It also is really beneficial to those people that are higher in the accrual process. We want to make sure that there's a reward that comes into play with those types of things too, to get them, rewarding them for getting in their long tenures, things of that nature as well.
Thank you. Mr. Osmond?
Thank you. Sarcasm aside, I'm actually going to vote against this tonight. And the only reason, based off of certain things that have been said tonight, I don't feel comfortable voting on this. And instead, I really feel it's important for a work session. My mouth dropped open when I found out that we are one of the few, if not the only, for paternity and leave and maternity leave. I remember when we first had our first kid, it was important to us to pick a firm that had that policy in place. And I think it's important to have a T-chart and figure out all those things like the compensation, the vacation, the buyback, all those in a spreadsheet that we can have ahead of time to start planning out what-if scenarios. And tonight, I just don't feel like I have that in front of me. And I'm not going to vote on something just because we need to get it pushed through. It's more important to have a work session on it. Yeah.
Ms. Kane?
I would agree. 15 years I've been sitting here, and 99% of this I've never heard before. So for us to have to make a decision, not that it's on the fly, because we've been having this discussion for a while, but it's so complex and so many moving parts. I don't feel prepared personally right now to make this decision in a vacuum when it's anything but, it's an umbrella, it's not a vacuum. So I agree with Mr. Osmond. I don't feel prepared to make a decision. And normally when I don't feel to be prepared, then I have to say no, because I can't, for 15 years, I haven't said yes to something I don't agree with. So if I don't know, that's an automatic no for me. So I would have to be a no tonight as well. I just don't feel like I've had the time or the exposure or all these other little nuances. I don't have a clue. I know this is kind of Mr. Rawlings' lane, but it's never been my lane. So I'm sorry, I'm not prepared tonight, even given what I've been given so far. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Larson?
I think vacation is a huge part of our compensation, and it's so important for our employees, and I want to get this right, and my head is swimming on this, the whole thing, and this is out of my lane, but in the back of my head, I'm comparing. I have 2 young adult children, and I'm comparing what we are offering to what they're getting, and we are behind. We are behind. And so, and I want to get it right for our employees, for both attracting employees who are just starting out, and then our tenured employees who have years of service and options to go elsewhere, to make lateral moves. I too would be in favor of a work session, because we want to do this right, not to get it right, and then also for the benefit of our employees. So hopefully we've got something on the calendar sooner rather than later, because I agree, we are behind. I do want to make improvements, but it seems like we have multiple areas to work on.
Mr. Sipple and Ms. Villa?
I just, following up on Ms. Larson's comments, we have the expectation that in the not-too-distant future, we'll have that compensation survey. Do you know what the ETA is on that, so we can think about a work session, as Mr. Osmond has said, in October or November, when we can not only put those starting levels or those pay levels down on the table, but talk about maternity leave and vacation policies and all these other things in a work session? Can we get it done this calendar year?
The compensation study, the first phase is strictly comp. So that's just wages, base pay, pay ranges. The meat and potatoes of the vacation leave, the paternity, maternity leave, what benefit plans that are offered, those types of things, retirement contributions. That's a 2024. We split the two in different to make them more readily available because we didn't know 100% certainty the amount of capital that was going to take. We wanted to make sure that it was sort of phased in as an approach.
Well, we approved the base pay piece of it. I don't know, have we approved phase 2?
We have not.
Okay, and if we, normal course of events, when would you expect that phase 2 information to be available to the council for a work session?
Phase 2 will be probably mid-late 2024. Phase 1, I think the plan typically is going to, unfortunately to say, last discussion was probably late this year, early next year. I want to make sure that we do it right, well put together, and we're in the early stages of that. This week, we're starting some of the outreach and discussions amongst staff. They've been doing some stuff on the back end from our HR perspective, but they're looking at pure development of salary ranges, salary studies, things like that for base compensation and pay ranges themselves.
Thank you.
Ms. Phillip.
I agree with much has been said about having a work session, but there are two things that I think I would be prepared to approve tonight. And one is this proposed modification to remove that maximum yearly carryover into a maximum accrual balance so that they don't gather more than 400, they can use it or cash it out, right? Is that correct? And so I think that makes a lot of sense to me. And the other one is to allow granting vacation leave upon hire. I think that's a really important thing. If you come into a job and you know that you've got a significant birthday family reunion gathering, and you're going to need a week off in your first 6 months or your first year because this is what's happening in your family, extended family life. I think those two things are pretty simple for me to understand, and I can see where they would be very helpful to do those two things if we could do that. I think those.
I'm going to say I don't agree, because I think we should have either analyze the vacation and say, do we want more than what's proposed? What is that going to do to affect our budget? There's a lot of factors that are in addition to what's being proposed. And to come in here this evening and only understand this amount, that's what a work session is for.
So let me ask the question, in terms of changing this first modification to calling it a maximum accrual balance, I don't see that that has a dollar value increase to our budget. Am I
That is
wrong?
correct.
And
Because
then-
we don't know. I mean, it's each individual choice. We can assume a lot of things, and those assumptions start out wrong from day one. We can assume that everybody gets up to 400, which would be an astronomical number, which I don't think is actually going to be really applicable.
So I guess I don't understand the difference between granting vacation leave upon hire and use of vacation leave.
I don't think you're going to be on the tape because you're
Oh.
not talking into the mic.
So can you kind of illuminate what is the difference between granting vacation leave upon hire and use of vacation leave upon hire? I guess I just didn't want to wait a year if it was a pretty simple thing to implement, and I thought those were the two, but maybe not.
But I don't think that we're waiting. I think the purpose of at least my discussion is, let's get it on a work session. We don't have something October 2nd
Okay.
or October 16th, and let's get all these on a piece of paper with HR saying, here's our whole policy to date. I'm not saying go into next year, it's let's figure it out immediately.
We actually, at our next meeting, are going to request a scheduling of a work session for the second meeting in October, and I think maybe the first meeting in November, and possibly first meeting in December. So we have topics for all of those. So we might this might be delayed. I'm not saying it shouldn't be delayed with a work session. And to be fair, Mr. Sanders said to me, Nick and Diane, when they sat and talked to me about this, do you think we ought to do a work session? And I said, well, this agenda has such little on it. We could have discussion here at this council table. That being said, there's far more questions about this from all of you, and they're good questions, than I anticipated. So I do think a work session is a good idea. I'm just not sure the timing of it. I'm not sure we shouldn't expedite the next portion of the compensation study, because I think that would all be good information to have, since that's going to be part of what they do. Mr. Rawlings, you had something.
Well, this used to be my lane a long time ago, but it's been away. I've been away
Well,
from
we
it for-
remembered it was
Yeah,
your
I
lane.
remember. I think it was about 10 years ago. It's not my lane anymore. But anyway, I certainly recognize times have changed since I was in your position and several other companies, some about this size, some big. But anyway, there has been a lot of change in how we recruit people, what people are looking for, life balance and that kind of thing. And so to Councilman Osmond's observation, which I did also, it seems to me we ought to look at the beginning of when recruiting and making that carrot a little bit stronger, a little bit more attractive versus as you get into the 15, 20, 25 years. And I understand there's a lot of benefit for seniority also, but my experience has been that a lot of people don't use it. They can only take off so much time. And I've been in companies, a couple of companies where you use it or lose it. But if you don't use it, there's an opportunity to carry it over for the next 3 months and use it, okay? Finance is like one of them. Year end, nobody was not allowed to leave because of putting the books together. But I have a belief that giving someone vacation at the very beginning, the first day they're there, maybe we ought to look at that and maybe wait for like 3 months. But that's just, it's not an up and down, but I just think that's probably something that I can swallow better than giving a vacation. Now, I'm not saying do that. I'm just saying my concern. I think it's, and you know, the supervision has the flexibility. I mean, I remember when I changed jobs, I had a ski trip, planned in February. I started my new job in January. So I got the time off, excuse absence without pay at that point in time, but then after a certain period of time, I could take something out of my bank and pay myself back. There's all kinds of things to do, but I'm a little confused too about this presentation and a lot of things that I think we need to pull together on a work session.
Mr. Sanders, what do you and Ms. Stoddard think about accelerating that next piece of our, it's the same firm, is it not, that's going to do?
It has actually not been put out to bid yet.
Oh, so you have to put it out, an RFQ?
Yes, ma'am.
So-
And if I may, a couple more of the decision points for you to consider was accelerating the accrual of vacation earlier in the career, was granting the leave day one for life happenings, to transfer in jobs that, hey, I'm not going to go over there quite yet. The opportunity doesn't exist to, I've got a procedure, or I've got my grandchild is being born, so I can't leave this job to take that job, or we're going to delay going, something along those lines, or waiting 6 months because I have to go unpaid, things of that nature. Those are also inclusive of being proposed. So we kind of blended the two together a little bit. So that's looking at both beginning and the end of the career cycle, to accelerating that to year 3, every 3 years as well. And then, it does definitely give a differentiation on the chart, but if we can dig into it a little bit more if you'd prefer, and we can move from there. It's a matter of, I believe that Ms. Stoddard is out on the next council meeting for a meeting as well, so.
Mr. Rawlings?
Nick, you made a mention about, are we chasing the clock here on the vacation decisions by employees between the December 1st and 15th? Did I understand?
Yeah, essentially what we have is our policy today says that employees must be under 200 hours or no more than 200 hours as of a given date for a vacation and cell policy, or carryover policy, not the cell policy, excuse me. And because of that, we either have a rash of people trying to drive down that, or we have people saying, okay, just throwing the number out there, I can carry to a point of 400 hours, I can go 300 hours, whatever that is at this discussion. You can make that decision, it's up to you guys. But I believe that we could probably in concept say eliminate that until we have a decision. I'm not 100% sure how we would legally or whatever that is to do that. But what we have is people making a decision to say, I need to take every other Thursday, Friday off to get myself under that amount of hours, because I've had 2 projects and I've just not taken anything but maybe 4 days off, and I'm now accruing 4 weeks a year, and I've got 8 weeks of vacation on the books, and so on and so on. Otherwise, I'm going to lose it. And so that's the motivating factor at this point in the year.
You made a comment about, Patty, I think you mentioned something that needs to be paid by a certain time or date because of some law, which I'm not familiar with. Could you, where I'm going is, if we're chasing December 1 through the 15th for decisions for employees to make currently under the current policy, can we delay that 90 days and push it into from January to March? We get time to decide what is best for the city and the employees, and then let them make their choices based on what's in their bucket now, but give them the opportunity between January and March.
The constructive receipt doctrine will not let you do that. It's a tax law that says it must be done in a previous calendar year.
By what?
By federal
by statute?
federal law.
By law?
Federal law.
It's an IRS.
It's IRS,
We received an opinion from a tax attorney, of which I do not claim to be one,
trying to figure out
who
ways
advised
to-
us this.
Yeah.
It is an interesting law, and Nick and I have talked about it. Not sure exactly where it came from, but it is something that you have to make a decision the year before. So December of 2023 on what you're going to cash out in December of 2024.
Ms. Kane and then Ms. Phillip.
Nick, can you remind us, the compensation study that we're going to have, both phases that you're mentioning, what was the dollar amount on that?
The dollar amount in totality that we had set aside was $2 million.
Told you.
Not for the study.
Not for the study itself, but for the implementation of the various types of programs. So if we had to pay $40,000
I thought it was
base salary.
1.2 million.
It was 1.2 initially, and then it was $800,000 was in the 2024 budget that was added
all
to
right.
that, to a round number of 2 million.
Okay.
And so it is inclusive of all of these changes. So if we have to say the city's going to pay more towards family health care, what is that expenditure? Now we have to build some of those expenditures into the operating budget as well, but we have that $2 million set aside.
Because I remember seeing over $1 million, that was sticking in my head also, that, but the study itself, if we hire an outside consultant and they are going to look at the two, we split it in two, is there a dollar amount to the study itself?
If I were to guess, based upon the study cost for the comp being $37.5, if I remember correctly, or $37.6, I would guess that the benefits, which is much more in-depth and analysis, I would guess it'd be about 40, 45 maybe.
For both sides?
I would say we 37 plus the 45.
I see.
We estimated approximately 60 to 75 from the study in totality. And so obviously things are getting more and more expensive. And so the cost of services are are actually getting more expensive as well. So we're probably going to be about $80,000 in total.
Thank you.
Ms. Phillip.
Okay, so I'm just going to suggest that we've talked about this for at least 30 minutes now. And even though I was thinking this was going to be a light night and we were going to be home early, if you're going to think in terms of work session, it's about an hour and 15 minutes. So I'm not sure why we just don't just suck up and carry on with this conversation and consider it the work session in place.
Because we don't have all the information.
What information don't we have?
Well, and also because we're asking Mr. Sanders to consider elements that weren't in this package, like a paternity-maternity leave, because I 100% did not know that the city didn't have that. And I have to think that we've maybe lost employees because we haven't, or I wouldn't come to work here if I was 25 years old, newly married, and planned to have a few kids in the next 5 years. I mean, that would be a deal breaker for me, and those words aren't even in here. So I feel,
That's an easy fix.
I'm not sure if it is.
No, but to put it in the vacation package.
I'm
Well,
wondering.
I don't know if it's an easy fix.
About our topics for work sessions, and I'm wondering if maybe we ought to review those topics and see about altering and having this as a work session topic sooner than later.
Yes, Mayor, I think we can do that. I think one of the issues will be if you all want to look at all of the potential cost items that are benefit related together, then that's going to be a little bit more involved than having, just a more in-depth discussion on this particular benefit package that is vacation. So things like paternity, maternity leave have been brought up, and there's other leave components like sick leave and things like that we have that do have a fiscal impact. So that may be helpful for us to know if there's a desire to kind of have a large understanding in a work session format about all of those different benefits that have a fiscal impact, and then we can certainly plan accordingly.
Well, and then if we go to that extent, are we doing some of the work that we're going to be hiring a consultant in the second phase of our comp study? Because that sounds like a lot of work for your staff.
We do it every day, Mayor.
You do?
Yes, we do. And
So
we have a
it's-
lot of this already to go.
Do you?
As a department head, executive group, management team,
Okay.
whatever you want to call us.
So it wouldn't
We've already
be-
talked about sick leave. We've already talked about maternity, paternity leave.
Okay.
It's just a matter of what is the comfort level. Just to dabble in it a little bit, if you go maternity, paternity leave, you're starting, is it at 6 weeks? Is it at 12 weeks? It's, because what do you do when someone says, hey, I've got cancer? That's a hard question, because if his wife is now he's on paternity leave, you gave it for him and he's helping for his wife, but I got cancer. And then you have that really, really weird struggle that you have there, but you didn't give me this vacation or the sick leave. And so then we've seen some of those dynamics. We've seen some of us have experienced that a brand new employee takes maternity leave and then they don't come back to work because they choose to stay at home. And that's money that I don't want to say lost, but is no longer recoverable in a work product. So there are double-edged swords when it comes to granting some of these things as well. It is very uncommon for an agency or an organization not to have maternity and paternity, and we do hear from those that are younger in their career, one of the questions they ask is, what is your, and we have to reluctantly say, well, we don't have one, but we have this fabulous vacation program and sick leave, and you do get holidays, and you do get the ability to use comp time and those types of things, so.
But you can't take vacation time to have a baby.
You can take vacation time to have a baby.
Can you take vacation time to go care for your grandchild?
You can take vacation time for whatever you want to take it for. You can't take sick time to,
But if
sick
you've
time is
only
its own
worked here
monster.
for a year or two, you've only got a week or two. So you can have a baby, but you got to be back at work in 2 weeks?
You take it unpaid.
Don't have a C-section.
Yes.
Just come back in 2
So
weeks.
what timeline are you suggesting that we try to schedule a work session? Do you want to not put a date certain on it at this point because of the question on the other topics?
I think so, Mayor, if it would be all right with you all, maybe just to have us regroup and look at those available work session times for the remainder of the
And
year.
the other information that you're going to be gathering. and-
Yes, and then we can put together a proposed time to respond and understanding what you all are needing.
Okay, that'd be
Thank you very
great.
much.
I think we could have a motion to just continue this discussion to a work session to a date unknown at this time.
So moved?
Second.
Motion from Mr. Sippel and a second from Ms. Larson. Thank you for all the work you put into this. I think it's been very good discussion. Mr. Rawlings?
I think this is a very important topic, I realize, for all of us, and we're trying to work around, trying to find a work session. Is it possible to have a special work session on a Wednesday night, or Wednesday at 5 o'clock at some point in time, if we decide to do that, so we don't lose some momentum or push something back that may, and I don't know what the other work sessions are, I can't remember, but
Well, we
obviously
can,
they're
we
all
could
important.
certainly poll the group. I mean, I think it's important for us to all be there, so.
I agree.
Yeah.
I have no problem with a special work session.
Okay. Ms. Harrison?
And maybe because this does seem to be, I don't think I've seen a discussion in a long time where there were this many questions from so many of us. Maybe we could, for the sake of the work session being more productive, submit questions ahead of time. Not that we haven't asked 47 tonight, and they're on record somewhere.
48, there was 48.
There you go. And I have more. My head's a whirling. But maybe if that would expedite
That's
a work
always
session.
appreciated. If
Okay.
you have questions ahead of time,
Yeah.
I know everyone always appreciates that,
So October 2nd is not an option, it's too soon, but
Ms. Stoddard will not be here, and I think we would like her here.
we would very much like her here.
Ms. Kane?
Well, and I might say too, personally, come January, we have 4 new folks up here. And I think it's imperative that we have this conversation, not that we can necessarily resolve it, but I think it's imperative we have this discussion before we have this changing of the guard. Because the collective knowledge up here is, we're all saying we're a deer in the headlights. Well, can you imagine if we have 4 new people up here? So I think it's imperative that we have at least one work session on this before the changing the guard. It may take more than one, I don't know. Thank you.
Understood.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other discussion? If not, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? It's approved unanimously. Thank you very
you.
much. 13B is to schedule a governing body meeting on Monday, October 2nd, 2023 at 7 PM.
So moved?
Motion from Ms. Kane, second from Ms. Harrison. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. It's approved unanimously. Thank you. Having no further business to come before this group, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Are you going to